Finishing my lipstick. Hi, everybody. I'm Call Gordon here. I'm a gentle sleep coach, and I specialize in working with kiddos up to about 6 years old, and especially those kiddos who are more alert and intense and sensitive and perceptive and who never, ever, ever sleep. But I can work with any kid who never, ever sleeps. So today we're talking about toddlers. First, I kind of want to define toddler because that can just be all over the place, right? People can say a 4-year-old is a toddler. I don't even know. So let's just say toddler right now is over 12 months. A lot of what I'll talk about could be applicable up to preschoolers. I usually think of preschoolers starting to be about 2.5, 3, really 3, 4. So let's say a toddler, it's going to be 12 to 2. But we're going to be give or take with all this stuff. At least a toddler from our point of view is going to be those kiddos who can stand and walk, because that creates a whole new set of issues when we're trying to work on sleep, right? So I'm a certified gentle sleep coach, and what that means is that I use an approach that's present and that uses skills that involve scaffolding of skills, so that we give a lot of help at first and then we back that help off over time. This can work really well with toddlers because I'll tell you, leaving the room just drives them right up a tree. Most people hear from experts and others like, oh, you better start early on sleep training because if you wait, it's going to be so much harder. Well, they never really say what they mean by that. And I've been thinking a lot about that. And I really think that the harder is for us. I actually think it gets easier for the child because if you think about it, they have more skills, right? When we talk about self-soothing, a teeny, teeny, tiny baby doesn't have a lot to work with at all, almost nothing. A 1-year-old, an 18-month-old, a 2-year-old, they got a lot of stuff. They got a lot of skills in their little toolbox. They've got ways of thinking about things. They've got motor skills. They've got visual skills. They've got attentional skills. That means they can direct their attention. They can look at something and get interested in it. They know how to get their hand to their mouth. They can rub their hair. They can hold their toy. They can do a lot of stuff for themselves. So in some senses, working on sleep is easier for them because they have stuff they can do. It gets harder for us because they have stuff they can do, meaning they can stand up, they can call for us, they can do a lot of stuff that makes it harder on us to stay strong, I guess. People also worry about separation anxiety, and that's really true. Starting at 1, when a child can walk, and you'll know this as you move forward, there's a lot of push-pulls with development. At 1, at 2, adolescence, kids develop motor skills that allow them a certain degree of freedom. You'll watch an actual toddler who's just learning to walk away from you, and they're really excited about that, like freedom and excitement, and then all of a sudden they realize they're in the middle of the floor, too far away from you, and they get a little freaked out and they come back. At 2, the big milestone there is that they discover that their mind is separate from yours. Again, exciting and also a little terrifying, right? Because they're separate. So you're going to experience all that stuff at bedtime. Don't go, I can do it myself. I don't want you to go away. I don't want to go to sleep as a 2-year-old. I think I'd rather play. You're going to experience all of that at bedtime because it is a separation. So when we do sleep training, those of you who've maybe done it or are in the middle of it, you may think it's one and done, and it is absolutely not, because every time a child goes through these big milestones, sleep is going to suffer. So anytime a child learns to walk, they're going to practice it in the crib. They're going to experience that separate feeling of separation when you are about to leave the room. A child who's 2 is going to be practicing that. I have different thoughts about bedtime. Then they turn 3 and that whole thing turbo boosts into, I want to drink a water, I need a new stuffed animal, I need a hug, my Band-Aid, whatever. It just never ends. So it's always good to have a plan for bedtime that you can live with. So I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to keep talking. The plan, and this is going to be more important the older they get. So with 1-year-olds, you know, you can pretty much continue any plans that you had since they were a baby. It doesn't have to really change. It's really when they get to be 2, 2.5 that our whole framework needs to change. I do want to talk a little bit about floor beds, co-sleeping, and toddler beds, which are like floor beds. We have to be aware, especially with people sometimes want to change to a floor bed because they think that's going to be so much better. Let me just say it's possible, totally possible, but when you have a child who is now super mobile, who is walking, you have to account for the fact that they are going to not be contained at night. And a lot of times what happens is a kid in a floor bed, what ends up happening is a parent sleeping in there full time because you cannot keep that child contained, and a closed door is either completely necessary and also totally problematic. So really think hard about a floor bed because children really aren't, they don't really have the cognitive capacity to understand I stay in my bed, or they can't make their body stay in their bed until they're 3. So if you put a kiddo in a floor bed at 15 months, you get a long time before they really have the capacity to understand I'm supposed to stay in my bed. Now, some kids do. I have heard of some kids who just don't get out of bed and they just sit there and yell for mom and dad. Great. But other kids, it's a huge rodeo and people are walking them back to their bed, back to their bed, back to their bed, back to their bed. And then suddenly dad is in there full time all night long. So really think about it. Really, if you're like right now considering a floor bed, think ahead and understand that the lack of containment can open another can of worms that you may not be anticipating. So short answer is keep them in the crib as long as you can. Now, if it's a safety issue, of course, if it's a safety issue, what you have to do. If a kid is climbing out and could hurt themselves, the first thing I usually say is, let's see if there's something we can do to keep them in there. There are now crib tents have come back on the market that'll keep a child in the crib. There are also these pajamas that have a band sewn between the legs so they can't get their leg up to climb. So you can try that. Keeping them in the crib is going to be sometimes preferable to dealing with the whole floor bed or toddler bed situation. If you do a floor bed, try a baby gate. Really baby proof the heck out of that room. And then just do your best, I guess. For co-sleeping families, routinely co-sleeping families, I mean, this is really for older babies, but certainly toddlers. Once they get to be a certain age, I always say I would at least recommend working on some crib skills for just that period of time between when the child goes to bed and you're ready to go to bed. Co-sleep after that, but it's really great to have a safe place to put the baby or the child where they're not going to get out of the bed and wander around, or once they're mobile, it's a good time to just at least for that period of time, and then you don't have to go to bed when the baby does. Yay. Okay, other issues for regular toddlers. I don't have too many that are much different than babies. Make sure they're getting enough nap time. Oh, I know what I can talk about. 1-year-olds well, 1 to 15, 16-month-olds who are in daycare and are on the one nap. So hard, so hard. Children don't usually transition to one nap until they're closer to 18 months. Generally, broad brush, grain of salt. Um, but a 1-year-old on one nap is almost always far too early, and daycares across the country put babies on one nap. And usually that nap is from 1 to 3, which is also way too late. Uh, I can't, I wish I could talk to them all. It's hard because what usually ends up happening is children are then waking up early in the morning. So if you've got a toddler on one nap and they're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that nap is probably the reason why. A kiddo who gets really, really overtired in the day, that's often the repercussion is they start waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I know it seems mean, but it's true. What can you do? Limited. We're limited. My only hack, and it doesn't really work for everybody, is to see if you can get them a nap before they go to daycare. And that just means if they're up at 5 and 6:30, they start looking a little droopy, get them a half-hour nap. Just get them to sleep. You can treat it like it's a continuation of nighttime. It's just a little thing to tide them over between 5 or 6 a.m. and 1, which is just dreadfully long for a 1-year-old child. We got to try to break that up. If there's any way to talk to the daycare and see if they'll give your child 2 naps, that would be amazing. Or an earlier nap time, that'd be amazing. But most of them do not. Alternatively, you may just have to start getting your kiddo in bed earlier at night. And hopefully it's short term until their brain catches up to the one nap schedule, which might only be a few months. So I know it's hard to say, oh, get your kid home and get them right into bed. You won't see them, but it's like short term, investment in getting them better sleep and maybe you a little bit better sleep. It's a huge problem. Daycare nap timing is a huge problem. It's huge for toddlers, and it ends up being huge for slightly older children who should not be napping till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a problem. It's a problem. If anybody out there is motivated and wants to start a parent lobby to persuade daycares to change their policy, I'd be all over it. Okay. Let's see. What else can I talk about toddler sleep? Let me think. Sleep skills. Well, I'll just do a little plug about temperament. Generally, folks who have easy sleeping kiddos probably wouldn't. I don't usually talk to folks at 1 who have good sleepers because they're sleeping. I usually talk to folks who have more sort of alert, intense, sensitive, kind of tougher nuts to crack, FOMO kids who are not sleeping. If you have one of those, just know it's not because you did anything wrong. It's just that's how your kid is wired. These children need real focus on enough nap time, good wake windows. Do not wait for them to look sleepy. Know what their wake window is and go for that nap regardless of what they're looking like. And early enough bedtime. People will say, oh, my child has low sleep needs, and I just think it's because they're acting like it, but they're really not. I think we have to try to get them more sleep, and then if you really can't, then that's okay. But generally, we give up too soon and just chalk it up to, oh, they just don't need sleep, but they actually do. So enough nap time and early enough bedtime, believe me, you don't want these kids to hit a second wind. And then I'll just walk you through the Sleep Lady method, just in case anybody's out there looking for an alternative, because there's so much information about how to do Ferber, or those, all the books are basically Ferber or some variation. There is an alternative. I'm just in case anybody wants to hear it. The sleep lady approach allows you to stay with your child at first, helping them fall asleep in the crib. That's the important part. For any sleep training, I mean, you can make your own method. The important part is that a child has to fall asleep in the situation where they will wake up. This is a big takeaway for everyone. If you are rocking or feeding your kiddo to sleep and you're expecting them to just go back to sleep in the middle of the night, not going to happen. For your child, it is setting a pattern. If you're rocking and feeding and then you transfer them into the crib, they think that's how sleep happens. So from their perspective, they're like, oh, I'm rocked, I'm held, and how did I get in my crib? How did I get here? Hello, come back, do that thing you did at bedtime so I can go back to sleep. That's why they're waking up and calling you. Not because they're hungry or because of separation anxiety. They're getting you to come do what you did at bedtime because that's how sleep happens. So we have to give them a new idea. And that means doing at bedtime what's going to happen in the middle of the night. So eventually we want them falling asleep where they're going to wake up in the condition that they're going to wake up. So essentially falling asleep in their own space, under their own steam, so that when they open their eyes, they can look around and go, oh, I know how to do this. And they just go back to sleep without having to call you in and have you pat their back or fix their blanket or any of that stuff. If you're doing that stuff, that is part of their sleep pattern. That's their little template, their little script for sleep. Here's how it works, a little macro. Here's how it works. So if you're part of that, some people say, oh yeah, I just go back in, I hand them the pacifier, I fix the blanket, and I walk out. Well, yeah, you're going to always be doing that. So we have to fix bedtime and then repeat that pattern in the middle of the night identically. So the idea is we want to get any child in the crib awake. Forget about drowsy, but we just want them awake because we want them to know how to go all the way from awake to asleep where they're going to wake up in the middle of the night. So we get them in the crib, and the sleep lady approach, you can pat, you can shush, you can hum intermittently until the child's asleep. If they really freak out, here's the big part, you get to pick them up and calm them down. Because I say no one's learning anything when they're hysterical. So pick them up, calm them down, put them back. People go, well, aren't you reinforcing the crying? No, you're helping your child stay in a zone where they can think straight. You're helping them calm down. You're keeping them in a manageable zone. Pick them up, calm them down, put them back, and keep going until they're asleep. And then every time they wake up, ideally, probably after a year, you're not feeding at night, hopefully. Then you go back and you do the exact same thing. And every couple of nights, we're going to just move away till you're out of the room. Now, here's the good news. You can do that anywhere, in any pace that you want. The idea is that you start out by giving a lot of help, and then you taper that help out so that you're pretty much out of the pattern. I know, it's not rocket science. It's hard to believe there's whole books written on it. That's the whole idea. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah, so I do, oh, there is a chat. Is there a chat? You're talking about nightmares and night terrors. Oh, thank you, Meredith. Sure. Yeah. Great. So that was the whole thing. That was the whole template of sleep training. Honestly, I mean, yes, there's ins and outs, but that's the template that anyone can use. If you're fully laying with your kid in their bed, start by sitting up, then sit on the floor, then move away. It really does work. It really does work because you're not leaving the room. You're staying and tapering out. It works great with kids in beds. And for kids who are a little bit older, it really works great because you're just gradually getting them used to you not being there quite so presently. Great. Okay, nightmares and night terrors. Sure. Nightmares don't really start till kids are a little older. You know, 3, 4. The nightmares are actual bad dreams. Those are actual dreams that a child will remember the next day. They are bad dreams. Night terrors are, they are not awake, and they usually happen in the first couple of hours of sleep. They will look awake, kind of. Their eyes can be open. They can be completely losing it, but they are not awake. The advice is that you really aren't really supposed to do anything, which I have to admit is a tough sell for parents, because it really seems like the child is losing their mind. So I will leave it up to you what you do. They can go on for quite a bit of time. What I would do too is if it's just if it's a one-off, I would look at that day and ask yourself, did my kid get overtired? Because it can come from overtiredness. If it's just a one-off, chalk it up. I wouldn't worry about it. If it starts happening frequently and it starts happening about the same time every night, I mean, I really would keep track. If parents go, oh, it always happens right around 11 o'clock. Okay, here's one little thing you can do, and this is only if it's regular, is you can go in about 10:50 and gently kind of jiggle your kid just to bring them into a lighter phase of sleep. Not enough to wake them, but just get them in a little bit lighter phase of sleep, and ideally that will get them over that event. But that's really only if it's happening like pretty regularly at the same time. Most doctors will just say, oh, don't worry about it. If it's truly becoming disruptive, I had somebody recently who said they were sort of worried for their kids' safety, like it was really disorganizing, or it sounded scary to me. If it's worrisome, like, okay, this is not normal, it's starting to really disrupt the family, it's disrupting the child's sleep because it's going on so long, talk to the pediatrician about it. Luckily, Seattle, you have two pediatric sleep clinics in town. There's one at Children's and there's one at Swedish. You are so lucky. So push comes to shove, you might be able to talk to a sleep doctor if it got, if it was truly, something that was worrisome. I would say also, if you're using melatonin, which is dicey, and they're having night terrors, I would also think about that as a possible culprit. The only other culprit I'm going to talk about for night terrors, and this is an outlier kind of, is if you have a child who is taking a million years to fall asleep, restless, having these wake ups in the middle of the night where they're screaming, they're crying, they're uncomfortable, they're awake for an hour or more. You've tried a lot of things and sleep is just horrible. And it came on kind of suddenly. I have seen a massive spike in, believe it or not, it's essentially pediatric restless leg syndrome. But it comes from low levels of ferritin in the blood. And that can cause something that looks like these really bad night terrors, but these would happen later. So an early in the night, it's a night terror. If it's happening at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and sleep is also otherwise terrible, you guys have my contact information and you should get in touch with me and I can help you sort through that. But kiddos do get organic sleep issues. Any child, well, let's talk about that real quick. Any child who is snoring outside of a cold, children should not snore. They should not snore, full stop. So if you have a kiddo doesn't have a cold or allergies and is snoring, you should absolutely maybe get that checked by an ENT, because adenoids can get inflamed and if they can't breathe, they can't sleep. Same with mouth breathing. If they sleep with their mouth open or if they sleep in a weird position, like with their neck thrown back, Mouth breathing can also be from an unresolved oral tie, like a tongue tie. So that could be something to look at. But mouth breathing, snoring, if they wake up with a sweaty head, that all can be obstructed breathing. So those are things to get looked at. Food intolerances, a little harder, a little squirrelier. If the kid has eczema still, eczema is really itchy. People tend to write it off and go, no, we'll put cream on it, but it can be really uncomfortable. Physiological stuff at this age, it's usually mostly apnea, like obstructive breathing and the restless legs. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I would say is usually really up with toddlers. You know, late on motor, like kind of late on motor milestones. If sometimes kids have tight muscles or weak muscles, and laying flat for any period of time could be uncomfortable. So another physiological cause of sleep problems. This is especially true, y'all, if you have tried sleep training and it has not worked. Like if you've gone, hey, we tried this, and sleep is still a nightmare. For me, it's like ding, ding, ding. Or if your child is waking up every hour or two, still at 1 or 1.5, like that's a red flag that something physical is going on. And any sleep training is not going to work if something physical is going on. It's so funny when I work with people, behavior is like the last thing I get to, because so often, especially with the sensitive, intense ones, so often there's something physical or something like they just, maybe a parent is waiting for them to look tired during the day. So this child is getting like 0 nap time. We get them a little nap time and suddenly bedtime is so much better. So we do the easy stuff first, and behavior is like the last thing that we tackle. I know it's the first thing everybody else tackles, but really there's so much more to sleep than behavior. So much more. See, I told you I could talk for half an hour all by myself. It's so easy. Well, I would invite any of you, you can post questions. I do offer like little half-hour triage phone calls that are just literally to suss out problems. So I don't really even do like those big involved coaching packages. I like to just meet with parents and problem solve. So if anybody feels like they really have something they just want to help figure out or rule out, we could just do a quick 30-minute call, and we can totally do that. This has been great. Please let me know if anybody has questions. I'm totally here for you. Bye. How do I end?